So we are going to continue our series, Big Names in the Bible. Does anyone have any guess on who we're doing tonight?
Jesus.
Nope, not Jesus.
Noah.
Not Noah. Stop it, you don't get two guesses. Nope. It's Old Testament. Zeus is not in the Bible. Old Testament prophet.
Jacob.
Jacob's? You mean Jacob?
Yeah.
No.
John.
That's not Old Testament.
Noah.
Like here we said Noah.
John Baptist.
Nope, Old Testament prophet.
Louis the 13th.
Nope, Old Testament.
Louis the 13th.
That's, no. Matthew's New Testament. You were close though. What? You're thinking of not the Bible. You're thinking of a king from like England. No, that's not in the Bible. Alright, we're gonna keep going. This is gonna take a little while. Obviously you guys did not know all of the prophets from the Old Testament. No, not the Civil War. We're gonna get a man named Elijah. I'm sure you guys would have gotten there eventually. I believe in you. No. Do not do that. So, Elijah, really cool guy. He's actually my favorite prophet from the Old Testament. He does a lot of cool things. Like I said, he's a prophet from the Old Testament. At his time, when he went and talked to Israel, especially during the story that we're about to talk about, all the other prophets in Israel had been murdered. They didn't just die off, they were killed intentionally. People tried to kill them. He was the only one left, because he left for a little while. He's actually one of the only people in the Bible who doesn't die. So homework for you, if you can figure out what happened to Elijah, other than dying, because he didn't die, I will give your team 20 points, if you can figure it out by next week. And he does a lot of other cool things. His story's really cool. Yeah, that picture he has nice hair. I don't know what his hair actually looked like. He didn't take a selfie. If you can figure out what happened to him because he didn't die. Nope, he didn't die.
Or message it today.
After the message. After the message. After the message. After the message. Put your hands down. So, we're going to get started with this story. And it starts in 1 Kings, chapter 18, verse 18 through 20. I had a typo. Sorry about that. It says, I have not made trouble for Israel, Elijah replied, but you and your family, your father's families have. You have abandoned the Lord's commandments and have now followed the Baals. Now, summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who will eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. So, it's verses 850 prophets. And the prophets of Baal, Baal was a fake god, a false god in the Old Testament that pops up a lot. He's very popular. And he had 450 prophets with him that day, or for him that day. There were 400 for this other false god named Asherah. And Elijah was like, hey, this isn't good. We got to do something. And so Elijah, when he's talking to the people, it says, Elijah went before the people and said, how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. He kind of puts it pretty straightforward. He kind of says that either God's God or Baal's God. You need to pick one and follow him. Because the Israelites, throughout all the Old Testament, have this habit of going, oh, we love you, God. Ooh, look, sin. Oh, we love you, God. Ooh, look, sin. They're like a child that can't make up their mind what toy they want to play with. So Elijah's ready. Elijah is going to fight for God. Elijah is ready to challenge Baal, this false god. He's ready to challenge all the people of Israel. He's ready to challenge all these 850 prophets. He's ready to prove who God is. He says, you guys don't get it anymore. You guys have lost sight on who God is. You need to open your eyes. You need to pay attention so you know who God is. And I'm here to show you who that is. So, 1 Kings 18, 22 to 24 says, Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left. But Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set it to fire. I will prepare the other bull, put it on the wood, but not set it to fire. Then you call on the name of your God, I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire, he is God. Then all the people said, what you say is good. So, he's got this challenge. He said, I'm going to prove that Baal is not God. I'm going to prove that the Lord is God, that Yahweh, the God of Israel, is the true God. And so they're going to split up. They've got one bull for each of them. They're going to chop them up. And then, like it says, like I underlined, then you call on the name of your God, and I'll call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by fire, he is God. So the God that sets his bull on fire is God. Does that make sense? Because this becomes really important later on. Okay? So, Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Baal, answer us, they shouted, but there was no response. No one answered, and they danced around the altar they had made. So, the prophets of Baal get to start. They get to pick their bull, they get to set everything up, they get to go first. They started from morning, which morning in this time is sunrise. It's not when you guys wake up on the weekend at like 10 o'clock. It's like 6 a.m. So from 6, 7, whatever, something like that. That's true, we got the hour. So 7 till noon, they're calling to Baal. They're saying, Baal, light this on fire, prove your God, all these things. And they cry out, they start dancing around the idol that they made, then around the altar that they had made. So let's see what happens. So at noon, this is one of the reasons why I love Elijah. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he's sleeping and must be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. So Elijah starts mocking Baal. He's saying, here God's got to be asleep, or maybe he's traveling. You guys got to be louder. You got to get his attention. And so the prophets of Baal start stabbing themselves. They are so obsessed, they believe that Baal is God so much that they are cutting themselves and stabbing themselves with knives and spears. And if you notice, Elijah hasn't started yet. This is nighttime already. It said from noon to night they went, and at nighttime. So imagine, you're one of the prophets of Baal. You've been worshiping Baal maybe your whole life. And you've got this challenge, and there's 450 of you guys. And you start it in the morning, 7 a.m. 5 hours go by, it's noon. Nothing's happened. And then this other prophet of Yahweh starts making fun of you guys. So you start stabbing yourselves and cutting yourselves and trying to make this God that you believe in wake up. But nothing is happening. There's things that take us away from God in our life. There are things, whether it's social media, maybe it's sports, maybe it's your grades, maybe it's music, maybe it's just friends that are just bad influences on us. But there's a lot of things that take us away from God. And Baal, this false god, took 450 prophets away from God, along with all of the Israelites that had started to follow. This false god took an entire nation away from God. Made it so all of their eyes stopped paying attention to what God wanted. And eventually, it got those 450 prophets hurt. They were cutting themselves, stabbing themselves for this false god. And maybe you guys are sitting there like, well, there's nothing that would make me stab myself. There's nothing that could make me hurt myself that would take me away from God. And maybe you're right, maybe physically you wouldn't hurt yourself. But what about emotionally? How many times do you freak out if you don't get enough likes? Or if you don't have enough followers? Or if you don't get a good enough grade and your parents are going to beat you when you get home? Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe it's an emotional thing. You cry yourself to sleep every night because you're so obsessed with people liking you. You spend all your time working so you have enough money to buy the new clothes and the new shoes so you can show off and people think that you have money. I love the picture that I found. If it stops you from getting closer to God, then it needs to go. There's nothing more important than your eternity. There is nothing more important than your relationship with God. Because that is what's going to get you through good times and bad times. That's what's going to get you through the hardest things in your life, is your relationship with God. And if you take your eyes off from that, you're only going to hurt yourself. So, verse 30, we start off. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. So Elijah's finally getting started. He starts off, he doesn't build a brand new altar. He repairs an altar that was already there. Because the people used to worship God on Mount Carmel. There was already an altar there that they had destroyed. And he says, no, this is where we're going to start. And if you notice, he called the people to him. He said, hey guys, we're going to get started now. And he repairs this altar because that's what's important. The altar that was already there, that foundation was already there for them to worship God. And he wants to use it because it's already been there. Now, who remembers what the challenge was between the 450 prophets, and Elijah? What was the goal? Set the bull on fire. They had to call on their God to set the bull on fire. Listen to this next 3 verses. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said. And they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," he ordered. And they did it the 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. He soaked the bull in water. How easy is it to light something that's wet on fire? Is that an easy task? It's almost impossible. So, what I think Elijah is trying to do here is prove to the people, I can't do this. I'm not going to set this bull on fire. Because if you've ever tried to build a campfire, you don't use wet sticks. You don't use wet wood. Think about the fall retreat last weekend. Alex, if you guys were helping Alex, he told you guys, he's like, if you can't break the stick, throw it away. It's too wet. We can't use it. Because you don't use wet wood to make a fire. Elijah was showing how powerful God is. He said, look, no human could light this on fire. This bull is soaking wet. The wood is soaking wet. There's water and a moat around it. God's going to do this. So watch what happens. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me. So these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. Elijah prepared everything. Elijah set everything up so that God could prove that he was God, so that God could show off his power. Elijah prayed. He said, God, it's ready. Show them that you're God. Turn their hearts back to you. And immediately God responded. God said, all right, you've done it. Boom, fire. And not just enough to kind of light the bull on fire. The passage said that it burnt it up. It burned up the ground, it burned up the wood, it burned up the bull, and it evaporated every ounce of water that was in the moat around it. Because God said, I'm not playing with you guys anymore, Israel. You need to see that I'm God. You need to turn back to me. Quit following those false prophets who couldn't get their bull to burn up. Because I just burnt this soaking wet bull and everything around it. God proved He alone was God. That nothing else was going to be as powerful as He was, as He is today. So listen to this passage. This is how the people responded. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." The people got it. Immediately, they turned away from the false prophet Baal and the other false prophets, and they said, "No, this is God. We had it wrong. We messed up. The Lord is God." And God made the choice to move and show Himself in a powerful way because He knew that's what the people needed at that time. He knew the people needed to see a miracle. They needed to see something crazy. And He said, "All right, I can do that. I can provide something that you won't expect." It's our job to be faithful. When God calls us to do something, when God calls us to share our faith, when God calls us to go on a trip, when God calls us to go serve, even if it seems like something silly like painting the windows. Because as we're faithful to God, He's going to be faithful to use us. As we shut our mouths and get out of the way, God moves through us. And God can work through students. Don't tell me that you're too young. Because the Bible is full of young people doing crazy things for God. Think about David killing the giant. Think about the Virgin Mary. What? Yeah, David and Goliath. Think about the Virgin Mary. Was a teen? Yeah, there's a bug walking behind me. I'm not going to squish it and get it all over my shoes right now. Think about the Virgin Mary. She was like 13 when God told her she was going to get pregnant and have the Son of Christ. David? Yeah. Daniel in the lion's den is another teenager in the Bible. So God can use you guys if you're willing. If you're willing to let Him use you. So I got a question for you guys. I want to know what you guys think. What do you think happened to those prophets of Baal? They died? Alright, what do you think?
They turned back to God.
They turned back to God.
Some people think they died, actually, God wouldn't kill them because if they believe Him and in Him now, He needs for people to follow Him instead of following good.
Alright, so we got a couple different options, a couple different thoughts. We're going to read the passage. Before we show, remember that picture that I showed, that if something's not bringing you closer to God, it's got to go. Elijah took that serious. Then Elijah commanded them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered them there. Yeah. God doesn't mess around. If He read that one, alright, so you already knew. God doesn't mess around. If something is taking you away from God, it's got to go. So these people, these prophets, these false prophets had to be punished. Because for years, not only were they leading the Israelites away from God, they were killing the prophets of God. They were the ones that were causing problems and killing off the prophets and leading people away from God. And God had said, "Enough. You can't keep leading my people astray." Elijah wasn't going to continue to allow. We cannot allow the things in this world to take us away from God. Whether that's sports, or Netflix, or video games, or school, or friends that are going to lead you away, or social media. We can't let these things get between us and God. And I know it's hard, trust me. I have to personally struggle. There's times I delete Facebook and Instagram for a while because they're pulling me away from God. And I need to get my life back in order. But we can't let these idols, the sin, the false hopes in this world take us away from God. Because God's the only one that 100% of the time wants what's best for us. No matter the situation, He cares about you and loves you more than you'll ever understand. And He wants the best possible thing for you. And so it doesn't make sense to turn away. Because nothing in this world cares about you as much as God cares about you. So like I said, if it stops you from getting closer to God, then it needs to go. I'm going to pray. We're going to go into small groups, guys. God, thank you so much for this night. Thank you for this powerful prophet, Elijah. Thank you for his story, his boldness, and his willingness to stand up and go to battle against these 450 other prophets. As that you bless small groups, help us to see how we can connect this story to our lives. In your name we pray. Amen.